welcome to the new Positive Talk Radio. My name is Kevin McDonald. I'm your host. This show is very similar to the show that was created 13 years ago. We're going to talk to great people doing great things, and I hope that you'll stay and be part of it. And you will learn a lot, and I will learn a lot. So stay with me right now as we begin our journey together on Positive Talk Radio. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Positive Talk Radio podcast. My name is Kevin McDonald. I'm your host. And for those of you who don't know who I am, not that it matters much, but in 2003, I started Positive Talk Radio, and it ran on KKNW 1150 AM for almost a year. And I learned quite a little bit about a bunch of different subjects, but today what I want to talk to you about is, first of all, this is our first podcast, and we're going to be doing this hopefully for a long time and talk to some incredible people. Today's guest is one of those incredible people. Her name is Amy Satori, and if you want to follow along, you can go to www.amysatori.com, and you can look at all of her work and what she does and all the things that bring her to us as the person that she is. But before we interview her, there's a couple things I want to mention. Well, first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the energy that Amy uses in her work. Now, we are all energetic beings. We are having a human experience in an energetic body. Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard that before, but that is really the case in what we are all about. And what Amy does, Amy is in what's called an energetic healer. So what she can do, she has the unique ability of being able to contact your body and the energy field that surrounds your body, and is able to work with you to come up with ways to make you feel better and to understand a little bit more about what's going on with you. And some of it has to do with past lives, some of it has to do with this life, what happened earlier in your childhood, or different aspects of yourself that she can help you understand what's going on with you. I had one of these readings just a few hours ago, and I was really totally impressed with what she's able to do. She was able to tell me things that I innately know deep down about what's going on with me, but she was able to point it out, up to and including energy blockages. Now, energy blockages are things that are keeping you from doing what it is that you would like to be able to do. And they may be somebody in your past who has put a thought in your head, somebody that was mean to you, or somebody that you have taken on as somebody that knew what was wrong, right and wrong with you. And in many cases, it was maybe an 8-year-old playmate who made a comment that you have taken on and held close to you for your entire life. I'll give you an example of this. My mother-in-law, former mother-in-law, was adopted. Now, she had two ways that she could approach being adopted. One was she could say, I have a great loving family now, which she did. She had many relatives and uncles and aunts and things. Her parents were a little older when they adopted her, but she had the opportunity of meeting and being part of this huge family. Well, she could have taken that path, but instead of that, what she chose to say was, nobody loves me because my mom gave me up for adoption. Well, the fact of the matter is, she had no idea what her mom was about or why she was given up for adoption. She just assumed that her mom didn't love her. And even though years later they found out that her mom was, and this goes all the way back to the 1930s, her mom was a 16-year-old who was desperate to terminate the pregnancy or to return to her normal life after the pregnancy was over, and had no way of taking care of her child. And so she had to give her up for adoption. It wasn't that she wasn't loved, it just circumstances prevented it. Well, she could have taken that road, but instead it has affected her entire life. Everything about who she is as a person is dictated by the fact that nobody loves me because I'm adopted. That's the path that she chose, and that's the energy that she put around that. And instead of taking the high road and saying, I'm so glad that I have my new family and everybody loves me, it was nobody loves me. And that was the story that she told herself. And it lasted her entire life. It affected many of the decisions that she made, and it oftentimes caused her a lot of grief and a lot of sorrow, and the family that she raised, the kids, and in some cases the grandkids were all affected by her negative energy. And that is what Amy helps you do, is to get through some of the things, some of the blockages that you have that you can control but don't see that you can control them. And she tends to point that out and to help you unblock that energy so that you can move forward with your life. And she pointed out several things to me that helped me do that. And I'm very grateful for her, and she's very, very talented. Again, this is we're talking about Amy Satori, and again, you can go to www.amysatori.com and read more about her, and she's also got exercises on her website that can help you get to the level of awareness that you would like, so that you can get past some of the blockages so that you can continue to grow, which is what ultimately we are all here to do. Now, one of the things that I want to mention before we get into the interview with Amy is something that I call the 50,000-foot view. Now, Amy has moved from Washington to Montana to the Oregon coast to Texas and is now in Boulder, Colorado. And the last move she did just spontaneously, just basically got in her car and found a place in Boulder to go. Didn't know anybody, didn't have any relatives there, but she had been given the idea that that's where she needed to be. And so that's what she did. Now, I don't know about you, but that takes an extraordinary amount of courage and intestinal fortitude to be able to pull that off and to make that work. Well, when I call the 50,000-foot view is that your higher self has got an agenda for your life. It wants to take you in a certain direction, and it sees where you've been and where you're going and how to get there. Now, you as a person, a conscious person, you tend to only see what's directly behind you and what's directly in front of you. I equate it to like being in the forest. You get to see the tree that's behind you. You get to see a short distance ahead of you, but you can't see the entire plan. You can't see where you're going and how you're going to get there. And so what you do is you have a choice. You can just stand there because you're scared to go backwards, you're scared to go forwards, and you don't know which direction to go, or you start taking yourself in a direction, and you start moving forward. Now, if you pull back from the ground level view to the 50,000-foot view, your higher self knows what you want and the direction that your life is going to go. So it can guide you through the forest, and as you continue to move forward, then things will open up for you. They'll open up in ways that you just can't imagine. And all you have to do is be open to the process. And so ultimately, you, in the 50,000-foot view, you get to go where you are designed and where you are supposed to go. But it takes a measure of faith to be able to do that, to continue to walk, even though you're not sure exactly where it is you're going, because things will just open up. You'll walk through the trees and end up in the great big meadow, or you'll end up with a new job. You'll follow a new place. You just continue to trust that and to use some of the tools that Amy provides you on her website to continue to move forward and trust that everything is by design and is going to work out for your best interest. Now, sometimes, as happened with me, you go through a period where things don't just go very well, but even those experiences are positive for you. It's something that you really, really can take to heart and understand what's happening to you and why it's happening. and you just continue to move forward. Even through, like in the opening, I list divorce and the death of my father and the death of my favorite dog and bankruptcy and all the negative things, being sued for $50,000, all the negative things that can happen to you. But at the end of the day, I'm still standing, and that's part of the theme song that I use at the beginning is I'm still standing because I am. And I've returned to the airwaves. This is something that I really, really love to do, and I love talking to people, and I love helping people get to where they need to go, and that's my mission in life. And so what I intend to do with this show is to bring interesting people to you with different points of view, all of a positive nature, to help you move out of the guck and grime and problems that are presented in this life, so that you can move forward to become the person that you really choose to become. And if you follow that and follow yourself and listen to your higher self, you will reach your goals. And it may not seem like it because you don't get to have the 50,000-foot view. You just are looking at the tree in front of you. But if you keep going and trust that everything's going to work out, you will be fine. And you will reach the goals that you want, and then what you have set out for yourself in this lifetime. It may take a while, and there will be ups and downs, but it will happen for you. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have Amy on the show, is because that's what's happening in her life right now. She has gone from being a very timid young lady 15 years ago to becoming a powerhouse of talking energy and helping people get to the level that they want to get to. So with that, I would like to take the time to introduce to you Amy Satori. Again, her website is www.amysatori.com. And this interview was done on the telephone, as all my interviews will be done. And this was interesting because you'll hear in the middle of the interview that it will start, there'll be some scratching noises and things in the background, which I just kind of equated to maybe a bad phone connection. But the more I thought about it, and the more it's true, I think that there was energy that is surrounding her that was being recorded as well as on the interview tape. So it's really interesting when you listen to it that it's very possible that because of her high energy output, she's able to reach you. And that's the other thing, is that because of that we are all energetic beings, even on the phone, she is able to communicate with you and with your past loved ones, with your animals, and also is able to energetically work with your health. And it's a proven fact. I have, during Positive Talk Radio, I had many people that came on that were psychic and had energetic healers and that sort of thing. And what they were able to do is reach you over the phone lines, because energy is everywhere, and that's all you really are. So with that, I'd like to again to thank you for listening to Positive Talk Radio, and here is my interview with Amy Satori, and I'll be back after the interview to wrap up. So please enjoy, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, my name is Kevin McDonald. This is the first podcast for Positive Talk Radio, and we'll be right back with Amy Satori. Today we're talking with Amy Satori. She is a good friend of mine, a great friend of mine that I've known since 2001. So it's been 15 years, and I've had the opportunity and really enjoyed watching her progress over the years. And she's done some incredible things and is now doing some wonderful energy work that, for those of you who don't know what that is, we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to welcome Amy to the show. Amy, hello, how are you?
Hi, Kev. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I'm doing great.
It is such a pleasure for me to talk to you because, we've been in and out of contact for the last 15 years, but I've always kept my eye on you because you have, and you had at that time, an incredible gift. You tend to downplay that gift that you have, but I think it's because it's something that you've worked at for a very long time. Can you tell us kind of your evolution? How did it start, and how did you become who you've become?
Oh, well, I guess it started when I was a kid. I was called the Pied Piper. Everywhere I go, animals followed me. And I just really had a connection with nature and the outdoors. I was a tomboy. And I just understood what animals were feeling. At the time, I didn't think that was different than anybody else. I knew I was probably a little bit more of a loner than anybody that I knew. But I was more like of a one-on-one friendship kind of person. When I got older, I could sense certain things. I remember one time being in class in high school, and I started to write a poem as if I was somebody else. And I showed the person that I thought the poem was about after class, and they just got goosebumps and started welling up with tears saying, this is exactly what I'm going through in my life and how I'm feeling. And that kind of spooked me a little bit. I didn't know what that was about. And then, of course, fast forward years later, I became very religious. I was against everything like that. I remembered that I had these intuitive moments. I'd had these experiences, throughout my life, little things. But, at that point in my life, I just totally disowned it and thought, that was of the devil and it really wasn't appropriate. So, I met a wonderful, beautiful woman who gave massages to me. She was a friend of the family, and she was such a loving person, and she had a connection with angels and would talk to angels while she was working on you sometimes. And she really just opened my heart a lot to get me past kind of the black and white views I was stuck in. And since she was so incredibly loving and amazing to me, and the fact that she spoke to angels really just kind of opened me up. And then I ended up living in a haunted house. So,
did you actually get to meet the spirits of the haunted house?
I never developed a relationship with any of them, but let's put it this way: my ex-husband called them my friends because they really liked me and they didn't like him very much. Sometimes they would lock him out of the house, and I would be asleep, and he'd come knock on the window, and he'd say, "Your stupid friends locked me out again." But, I think you and I had made a list, or I had given you a list of 30-something things that happened in that house. It was a very, very active house. And, John wasn't a believer in that type of thing when we first moved in, but by the time we moved out, he was sure that they existed.
How is it that, because most people that are in a haunted house situation where you've got quote-unquote creepy things happening, how could you embrace it rather than run away from it?
That was a hard one for me because I'd seen that movie with Bruce Willis, and the same thing happened with that little boy where it's do I talk to them or do I not? And finally he did, but they were really warped and their face was weird looking and, that type of thing. Yeah. So I was kind of nervous as to what I would see. Sometimes I felt watched. Sometimes I felt like something wanted to say something to me, but I was pretty scared, and it took a really good friend of mine to be curious with me, and she wasn't even a believer, but she was curious enough to say, well, why don't you do something? Try to talk to them or something. And then I was kind of experimenting with trying to see whatever I could get. And I didn't actually, believe it or not, get a lot of experience with that when I lived there. I had a really frightening experience happen, but most things were just things getting moved and sounds that would happen. and things like that. But eventually, I was practicing more with friends and things like that. As subjects would come up, I would kind of think, well, what can I get on this? And then I realized that they really don't show you anything that you can't handle. It's not at all as scary as you would think, as the movies say it is. And if they're showing you something, then it's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of like you know how in the movies that scary music is playing when they show you the gruesome thing, so it's horrifying?
Yeah.
It's like when you're watching it and this loving spirit is trying to convey something to their friend who's sitting with you, it's like they've turned down all that gruesome music, and it's kind of like you're able to look at it, and it's not frightening. It's not scary. You can see it. If you're supposed to see it, you can see it, and it's like, oh, okay. And it just kind of adds another layer or dimension to what they're trying to tell you.
Interesting. By the way, we're talking with Amy Satori. She is, Amy, how would you describe what it is that you do?
I've gone back and forth with that, but I think intuitive healer is probably the most accurate thing I could think of, or maybe spiritual medium.
Very good. And you do spiritual medium, and I, as a matter of fact, I have a personal story about that, which I'll share at another time, because I would like to have us do this kind of on a regular basis, because you've got so much to share and so many insights. One of the insights that I'd like you to share with us today is the evolution of you, because we met in basically in Kirkland, Washington, and then you went to Montana, and then you went to Oregon, and then you went to Texas, and now you're in Boulder, Colorado. And all of those moves had to be a little daunting and a little scary, weren't they?
Oh, definitely. I remember telling my husband, I can't do this anymore. I can't move anymore. I can't take it, because he was a geologist, and we had to move about every 2-3 years anyway. So I had moved from Kent, Washington to Montana, which is where I met him, and then we went to Bozeman, Montana from Livingston, and then we moved out to the coast for his job, and then we came out to Granbury, Texas. And by Granbury, I thought, I can't take this anymore, because even within those cities, we were moving from a house to an apartment, or an apartment to a house, stuff like that. So I finally was like, I can't do it anymore. And what was really funny is I ended up leaving him about 6 months after we got to Granbury, and then I found myself moving every 2 or 3 months since.
Well, it's interesting about that, because you were in Granbury, Texas, and you seem to have began to lay down roots and develop friendships, and your business was beginning to thrive and doing what you do as an intuitive healer. You were getting some notoriety and so forth, and then suddenly I hear via Facebook that you're moving to Boulder, Colorado. And I know for a fact you've never lived there, and I didn't know if you had any family there or whatever. Talk about how that happened. How did you end up in Boulder, Colorado?
Well, that was pretty crazy. I had been told, of course, with all this networking that I do and the events I go to and things like that, I meet a lot of really good, high-quality intuitives. You've got to sift through the ones that aren't very accurate and not in touch with their heart. But I have found a few key friends that have a lot of integrity and really come from a good place, and they're accurate. So I had a couple of these people tell me that they felt like I would be moving sometime soon. Of course, with your own life, one of the challenges is to tune into your own stuff, But other people were picking up on it, and I kind of knew that it was coming, but I had a lot of resistance to it because of all the moving I've done, and I loved Granbury so much. And I was finally living somewhere warm. Because all my life I've had to be so cold everywhere I live, so I was finally like, I'm not going anywhere. I love this tropical feeling. This is just perfect, If I could live in Costa Rica, I totally would. I love it there. So all these people were saying this, and I was like, they just want to get rid of me, They just want all the business for themselves or whatever, I was kind of just laughing, just going, you guys, And then I went New Year's Eve, I went to a rock shop and was kind of gravitated over toward some moldavite. And I had forgotten what they even do. I just love them. They're so beautiful when you put them up to the light and everything. And then I left, and about an hour after I left, one of my best friends called. She goes, I know how much resistance you have about this, and I really hate to say it, but I think you're going to move someplace really cold, and I see snow and mountains. And I said, oh, no. I said, I know where this is. And she said, where? And I said, Boulder, Colorado. And she said, why are you going to Boulder? She goes, things are really, happening here for you and everything. I said, I don't know, but I think it's because of Bentinho Massaro. And so I had this feeling that I might be one of his facilitators. So because he had said in one of his videos, what's the most exciting thing you could possibly think of doing? And I thought, be one of his facilitators and be able to travel all around the world and kind of teach people how to integrate his teaching. And so that was very exciting for me at the time, and I thought, that's what I would just love to do. So, of course, I'm being called there. That's like the next step. But so what started to happen was pretty miraculous and magical and all the above. I had a cat. I didn't want to let him go. He was my favorite cat, one of my favorite cats, and I loved him so much. But he really wanted to be outside really bad, and he was at the window crying constantly. We were in an apartment. I couldn't let him out. I would always explain to him, just wait, someday I'll have a house and I'll let you be in the cat enclosure and all of this stuff. And he was like, no, I want to be outside. I want to be in the grass. I want to roll around. And I was like, no, you don't realize how dangerous it is out there, So we went back and forth for a long. Yeah.
Did it ever dawn on you that people might consider that you were having a conversation with a cat and the cat was actually talking back to you would be a bit of a problem? Were you taking medication at the time?
It's so funny you say that, because the people that I talk to, they are kind of the same way. So of course they were like, oh, okay, well, have you talked to him about that?
Well, for those that are not aware of, and I've seen this personally, because at one time I had a dog. His name was Crockett, a beautiful animal, and we invited you over to our house, and you had a conversation with Crockett right in front of me, and it was the most bizarre thing. Not bizarre. It was a sweet thing, because you told me things about Crockett and his personality that were just so spot on, and you were having a conversation with him.
Well, he was like the first dog I had ever talked to, and it was so funny because he had this incredible sense of humor. And you were saying you took him for walks, like 2 or 3 days a week, and he started laughing, ha, ha, ha. That's very funny. and I didn't want to tell you that that's what he said, so I just kind of I shut my mouth, my eyes got big, and you said, did he just tell on me? I said, yeah.
Well, it's amazing. So anyway, you were having this conversation with your cat, and
he was not liking what I had to say. And then apparently he was also picking up on me thinking about moving to Boulder, and he could tell that it was going to be cold, and he didn't like the cold. So anyway, he and in the meantime, Bentinho Tire's office, or my representation of him, was also appearing to me and teaching me his teaching. So I would wake up in the morning and he'd be standing there and he'd say, remember that video you watched yesterday? Here's what I mean by that. Or I'd be in the bathroom and I'd be doing something with my hair, and he would come in and say, this, that thought you just had, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is an example of that. So he was kind of teaching and training me throughout that time. And he came to me when I was in the kitchen one time, and he said, are you ready? Are you ready to let go of your ex-husband? And I said, yeah, I think so. And I said, I'll always love him, but yeah, I think so. And he said, okay, I just wanted to make sure you're ready. I said, okay. And then that night, I had the feeling that bring a red jasper and a black tourmaline to bed with me. And those are both, like, one of them is physical protection, and the other one is, like, mental negativity protection. And I thought, what in the world would I need these for, in the middle of the night? So, but I did as I was told, and I brought those rocks to bed. And in the middle of the night, Neo bit me. My cat bit me. And he bit me so hard that I was so upset that I just collapsed and started crying so hard. Because I was like, I can't take this anymore. I'm trying to be the best mom I could be, and you're, like, being so mean. And so I flopped on the bed in frustration and bawling my eyes out. And then Tino flops on the bed beside me and says, what happened? And I said, my cat bit me. And he goes, well, do you want to know the truth? And I said, yes. He said, animals have free will too. So he doesn't want to be with you anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's awful. That's the worst thing you could say to me. Like, how could he not want to be with me? But, so here's what happens over the next few weeks is, I started looking for a home for him. I talked to my other animal communicator friends, and they're confirming everything he's saying. And in the meantime, I was still along the lines of letting go because Neo was kind of mine and my ex's child in a sense. So it's kind of me letting him go too. I had a friend come over who's also a medium, and I was looking at a picture, it reminded me of somebody, and I said, hey, this looks like so-and-so, and then she said, oh, that's your ex-boyfriend? Whatever happened to him? And I said, oh, he died a couple years ago. His name is Mo. And I said, Mo died a couple years ago, and she goes, oh my gosh, well, he's here. And I said, really? And she goes, you want to talk to him? I said, well, of course, yes. Yes, let's talk. So he ended up telling me everything, like he expressed through her with the same attitude and tonation and everything. I mean, you could totally tell it was him. He said things about his and my relationship that nobody else could ever know. Very intimate details. Then he told me all these things about my ex. And he had watched the whole thing. He was apparently, like when he died, he became a spirit guide for me and was watching my whole relationship with my husband and was appalled at all kinds of things and told me all of them. So I was shocked, and it made so much sense. And he ended up telling me, why he and I didn't hook up and why all this happened. So we have this incredible talk. And all of a sudden, I feel this huge lift off my shoulders, like all that guilt over having left my husband was gone. And I just thought, wow, I'm totally over him. And like in this instant, I don't feel anything for him right now. Then, like you and I have talked about how, spirits can work through so many different things. He just amazed me because he started to come through all my different friends in all the different ways that those friends are talented. So if some of them were into music, they would call me and they would say, I think your boyfriend Mo had sent you this song because it kept playing over and over. Or I went to watch a video on YouTube and it popped up before my other one opened. Or, really freaky stories. All these friends were calling me saying that Mo was giving me these really, really incredible messages. And I would ask him questions before bed, and I'd wake up the next morning, and a friend would call with the answer to it. It was just crazy. And this went on for weeks, and I mean, I was laughing sometimes, I was crying sometimes, but the messages were always really spot on and amazing. And he was helping me, essentially, to get over my ex. So when Bentinho came and asked, are you ready to let go, he really meant it.
I guess so.
And I found the most incredible home for my cat, like way better than I could have ever wanted for him. Like she loves him so much, and this couple, he's with this couple and they have dogs. They're just such a happy family that she texts me and sends me pictures and videos all the time. They're just so happy. So, yay.
So you found a great place for your cat, and then then you just packed everything up and moved?
Yeah, and that was kind of crazy too because my neighbor, all of a sudden out of nowhere, the one beneath me started complaining that my cat runs up and down the hallway. And he started kind of being a jerk about it and was like hitting the roof and, or hitting the ceiling with a broom and stomping around and started really creating problems. And I told the landlord, I'm getting rid of the cat, And it was just like, why is this happening? It was kind of like the universe's way of saying, look, you're going this direction. Please don't look back. I know this is a great apartment and you love it here, but we don't want you looking back and missing it. So we're going to make it like this. So by the time you leave, you're going to be glad you left, So
Wow.
things like that were happening that I thought, oh my gosh, I really need to go. And I found like this really incredible place to stay. While I was there, while I was still in Granbury, this woman offered for me to stay at her place. And it was already all set up for me to go. So it made it easier knowing that I knew where I was going to.
But
and that, by the way.
Go ahead.
No, that turned out amazing too because when I arrived in Boulder and I went to stay at this lady's place, I couldn't stay there because her animals had been urinating on the carpet for years. And it was so bad that I tried sleeping there one night and I couldn't sleep at all. So I didn't know what to do, and it really was a great challenge to overcome my old beliefs and limitations. It brought up all this stuff that surfaced of, oh my gosh, I'm homeless and I don't have a place to go and I don't know what I'm going to do. And then within a period of 3 days of having total faith and like repeating over and over, thank you God so much for all the incredible options I have to choose from, even though I didn't have any. I just kept having faith and just pouring my heart into that. And within about 3 days, at the very last minute, of course, somebody calls and they have a place for rent in Boulder and they'd like me to come take a look at it. And I had like 6 options that last day. It was awesome. The first place I go to is a woman whose daughter had seen my post on Bentinho's community website and happened to have a room she had been thinking about renting out. And turns out that her and her family are actually friends with Bentinho and all of his staff and many of his friends. And he's like been to dinner at their place and everything. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is just incredible. I'm being plugged right into the network right off the bat. So,
right, it's interesting because I've been following you on Facebook and stuff, and I was thinking to myself, oh, that poor girl, she's going to be in Boulder, Colorado all by herself. And then I see pictures of you with 10, 20 people having dinner or something. It's like, how in the world did she meet all these people so quickly?
It's been amazing. I mean, I already have some really, really close friends. It's been really, really neat. And you wouldn't believe all the synchronicities that have happened since I've been here either. I try to write in my journal every night, but it happens so fast that I can't keep up. It's one thing after another after another. I mean, I met Bentinho like after a week of being here. He invited everybody in the Boulder community to come to dinner with him if they were free. Well, as it turns out, I was the only person that arrived that he'd never met.
Oh wow!
So
now we're going to talk.
Like, what?
We're going to talk more about him in future episodes.
Okay.
Getting back to so now you're in Boulder, Colorado, and what I want to ask you about, because a lot of people I know have the question that they are going, well, the synchronicity that you keep talking about and listening to people and these people that keep showing up, and you have to have some sort of a special gift. How does that work? How is it that you are, or is it a skill that you've developed over the years?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think you just have to start looking at everything that happens in life as being in support of you, and see that everything is love and that everything is a gift. So even if it looks like something bad is happening, you got to turn it around in your brain to see the support in it. So I think that's what I started to do. It was, I don't know, and I try to see everything obviously from a very open mind. So if I see a sign, or if I see numbers, or if I pull a card, or I'm drawn to a rock, I'll just been curiosity. Let me look at that thing that just pulled my attention, and let me look into that a little bit. Not in a superstitious kind of way, but more like I pay attention to more and more little tiny minute little things than I used to. It's getting more and more refined, the subtleties. So I guess you start to see that everything is a sign. It kind of makes me think of, like, if you remember the movie The Labyrinth?
Yeah.
And it's like everything she encountered, she would just be curious and go toward it, and then some stuff she'd be like, no, and then she'd go toward something else that made her feel good, and she made friends all along the way. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like a maze, and it's you're going along and you're just looking for positive signs all the time. And what's happening on the other side is it's like we have what I call our divine guidance council, all these angels and, even aliens and guides, and Jesus is there, and everybody in past loved ones, and they're all surrounding us, and they're like on the edge of their seats. I tell you, they are just excited with every single little moment that happens practically. If it's going to lead to you feeling better about yourself, they are just, looking for you to pay attention like that, for you to look for those signs, because they'll eagerly and happily and gladly give them and give you confirmation if you're looking for it. But if you're looking for things to go wrong or bad, it's, you're not going to it's not going to be the same experience. You kind of have to just follow your excitement all the time.
So because there are times when I'll make a decision, or I'll think of certain thought, and I'll feel like there's like applause coming up from someone. Is that kind of what, and cheering and stuff? And I know what's going on just in my own mind, and I'm really not hearing it, but is that kind of what the confirmation that they're giving you?
I get the different kinds of confirmation that I get, like I have a video on YouTube, and it does me healing somebody or doing a session, like a little part of a session that I do, and people say that when they watch it, sometimes they get goosebumps, or they cry, or they get really, really sleepy, or they yawn a lot. Sometimes people get giggles. There are all kinds of different things that when you're working with energy that you'll sense or feel. But yes, it can affect people in all these different ways. Goosebumps are a really great way for you to go, oh my gosh, I'm spot on. That's always
really
a really
cool.
exciting one because it's so obvious.
You're on YouTube. What is your channel on YouTube?
Well, you can go to YouTube and just put in Amy Satori.
And
but the actual. Okay, well, the full name is AMY SATORI.
And just type that in and YouTube, and your videos come up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome, and that would be great for people who are listening to this, who want to get more information about what Amy does, and Amy herself. They could go to YouTube, right? They can also download this podcast when it gets up, and that would be awesome. So Amy is going to be with us on a recurring basis because there is so much. We've been talking for well over 30 minutes, and we have barely even began to touch the surface of the type of who you are, who you have become, and how you can help people. So will you come back on a regular basis so that we can explore all of those things?
I would love to. I love talking to you.
That would be awesome. By the way, if you want to contact Amy specifically herself and talk to her about the energy work that she does and perhaps do some healing for you, you can reach her at
www.amysatori.com.
Now, do you want to put out your phone number?
Oh, yeah. It's 817-219-8831.
And you can also go to thepositivetalkradioshow.com, and there's a little bio of her, and her phone number will be there, and so forth. So you can really get in contact with her, because Amy is the real deal, and I'm here to tell you. We did a little session with me prior to this podcast, and she does some amazing work, and she is really came up with some of the things that only my hairdresser knows. I don't know how you know some of the things that you know, but you know them. That's a fact.
Well, thank you, Kev.
You're welcome, and we'll be doing this quite a little bit. So this is the first podcast of the new Positive Talk Radio, and so we hope to continue this, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to put this together and make it work.
And welcome back to the show, everybody. My name again is Kevin McDonald, and you've been listening to Positive Talk Radio. Yeah, that was Amy Satori. Now, we're going to be talking to her more often because we need to really get into touch with all the things that she's really able to do, and it really is quite extraordinary. So I hope that you'll stay with this podcast and you'll listen often, because we'll be putting up new podcasts hopefully once a week or so. I've got a group of people lined up that are going to be really, really special. And so I hope you'll stay and download those. You can also go to www.thepositivetalkradioshow.com and listen and look at some of the interesting things on my website. And again, we've been talking with Amy Satori, and go to www.amysatori.com and look at all of the things that she's got going. We're going to develop this over time, and I would love your feedback. So you can always give me an email at kmradio@comcast.net and give me an idea of what you think we should do. I would love to be able to say, I'll see you next time, and do something nice for yourself. Do something nice for somebody else. And we'll be back.